Welcome, fellow babies, to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. We hope you're watching this real time and you're getting it on the SIFTD network. You're getting it as a Patreon patron. You have linked your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. You can get it through Twitch. If you're watching a week late on YouTube, that's because you can't get your act together to keep Shane in production dollars so he can keep making this show. I'm getting nothing out of it, but we appreciate your patronage. If you can be a Patreon patron, please do so. If you are an Amazon Prime member, and there's only 200 million of those, so odds are you are one, try to link your Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. We can get paid. You can subscribe through YouTube as well. Plenty of ways to help us out. And if not, you're getting it a week late. We ask at a minimum you follow Shane on Twitter at Dinfire. Follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. All right, everybody, that's all of you, has asked the question, what's going on with the whole GameStop short seller debacle? It's pretty interesting, actually. What do you think of short sellers? Are they scum? How does shorting a company like GameStop actually work? Is GameStop better off or worse off afterwards? Do you think this could continue to happen? Is it a good or bad thing? All right. Short sellers are great, and I actually think they're necessary to keep the market honest. And while anybody can short sell any stock they want, short sellers tend to do it only to make money. So let's start out with what is a short sale. If a stock is at 20 and you think it is worth 5, you don't want to buy it because you expect it's going to go from 20 to 5. So you want to sell it, but you don't own it. So how do you sell it? You borrow shares from somebody who owns it. You actually ask them for their shares. They hand you their shares. You borrow them. You owe them the shares back. You take those shares and you sell them for 20 bucks. And when the stock goes down to 5, you buy the shares back at 5. So you made 20, you sold them at 20, you got $20. You paid 5, you're out 5, you made 15 profit in your pocket, and then you hand the shares back to the person you borrowed them from. That's what a short sale is. The reason it's called short sale is you sold stock that you didn't own, so you were short the stock. You didn't have it. You were short. That's like going into a restaurant and the dinner costs 20 bucks and you only have 18. You're short $2. So that's where it came from. Totally legal. The reason that short sellers short stocks is they actually think they're going to go down. The reason that's good for the market is that it's good to have people on both sides of every stock trade. So every single share of stock that ever changed hands, ever, there was a buyer and a seller. And every single time the buyer was buying because he thought the stock was going to go up, and the seller was selling because he didn't think the stock was going up. He thought it was done going up. So there's every single transaction, there's a mismatch of expectations. The seller thinks it's going down, the buyer thinks it's going up, and one of them's always wrong and one of them's always right, and who knows. So do you really care if the seller of the shares owns them before he sold them to you, or he borrowed them to sell them to you? You don't care. You're buying them because you think they're going up. So the answer is short sellers are fine. They keep the market honest. They are famous when they get it right, and they get celebrated when they get it right. And some of the most famous short sellers in history are the guys who uncovered accounting frauds at different companies and identified when the company management was doing something wrong. And I remember guys who were short Enron before it went bankrupt, and WorldCom before it went bankrupt, Luckin Coffee before it went bankrupt. There was a company last year called MyMedics or maybe 2 years ago, and the CEO went to jail last year. He was one of the very famous rich people, the CEO, who paid off a clown named Matt Schlapp to get a pardon from Trump for him. And then Matt Schlapp took this evil CEO who is now in jail. He took $750,000 from him, and Trump, in his infinite wisdom, didn't pardon the guy. So you can look that up. Matt Schlapp, SCHLAPP. The CEO is Parker Pettit, but Parker Pettit is in jail because he lied to shareholders. And one of my friends, Mark Cahotis, was massively short the stock and made a ton of money. And he was right. And Mark Cahotis, by being vocal about what a fraud this company was, helped other people to sell the stock on the way down. So short sellers are good for the market. Let's move on to GameStop. So there's a guy who testified before Congress yesterday. Now you can check the timestamp on this video. Roaring Kitty, and I forgot his first name. His last name is Gill, I think. Anyway, he was a stockbroker, super smart dude, and he was on a website called Wall Street Bets. I read his original post back in August, I think it was, and on his original post, he observed that the short position in GameStop was more than 100% of the stock. And remember I said you got to borrow the stock in order to short it. So theoretically, you should never be able to short more than 100%. All the shares are lent out, that's 100%. The reason that GameStop had more shares short than it had shares outstanding is that you can also bet on a stock going down by doing something called buying puts. Buying puts means you are paying somebody money for the privilege of being allowed to force them to buy the stock back from you at a different price. So let's just say, back to my $20 example, GameStop is trading at 20 and I buy a put at 15. I'm saying to you, I would like you to buy GameStop from me for 15, right? The stock's at 20. You're like, oh, I love GameStop. I think it's going up. I can buy more at 15. Sure. I put the stock to you at 15. You get screwed. You lose 10 bucks. But in the meantime, I might pay you $1 to do that. So when you create these options, and same thing, you can sell calls. You have the right to buy it from me. I have the right to sell it to you, call put. Anyway, when all those derivative options contracts are out there, sometimes investment banks create, or securities firms create, what they call a synthetic share, and they put stock calls and puts together at the same price, and that represents the right to own the share at that given price, and that's how the short position got bigger. So this fellow Roaring Kitty on Wall Street Bets observed that the GameStop short interest was something like 114% of the shares outstanding. And again, mechanically, there are 65 million shares of GameStop. About 20 million were tied up with insiders and big mutual funds that had announced that they had more than 5%. So he really was measuring it on the 45 million shares. So 115%, 114% of 45 million, 50 million shares or something were out there short. And he said, if we on Wall Street Bets on Reddit can get together and we can all put in buy orders for GameStop and make it go up, then the short sellers are going to get uncomfortable, because they bet that the stock would go from 20 to 5 and it's going from 20 to 30. So if a short seller thinks he's going to make $15 on a trade, he shorts it at 20 and he thinks he's going to earn $15. As soon as he starts losing 10, he's freaking out. And if he loses 20 or 30 or 40, he's really freaking out because he's losing more than he thought he was going to make in the trade. The bad thing about shorting a stock is your downside, the amount you can lose, is unlimited. So if you buy GameStop at 20 and it goes bankrupt, then you can make 20 bucks. You shorted it at 20, you cover it at 0, you made 20 bucks. You buy it at 20 and it goes, shorted at 20, it goes to 400, you lose $380. If it goes to $1 million, you lose $1 million. So you have unlimited downside. So what happens when Roaring Kitty gets all of his Wall Street Bets friends together and he observes, if we all put orders in to buy the stock, there isn't very much stock. It's all lent out to short sellers. So the people who own it can't sell it because they lent it out. They can't sell it to us. So if we buy the stock, there's going to be 1 or 2 million shares of available supply. We're going to put in 50 million shares of demand, and that makes the price go up. If supply is low and demand is high, price goes up. So I think in his original post, the stock was in the low teens. And I think he was talking about it going to something like 30. And of course, more people were on Wall Street Bets following his advice than I think even he dreamed. And so he put in, I want to say $50,000, $54,000, some number like that, thinking he would double or triple his money and make 50,000 or 100,000 bucks. And the stock went to 400. So he literally made $48 million. And God bless him. Now, the problem with the Wall Street Bets short squeeze is the stock will only keep going up if there are new buyers coming in. So if you bought it at 15 and it went to 30, what are you waiting for? Are you going to wait for it to go to 400? Okay, fine. Goes to 100, 200, 300, 400. Now you're going to sell. Who's going to buy it from you? So the Wall Street bets guys who were piling in to buy it at 15 and 30 and 60, I know people who were buying it above 100, and it went from 147 to 317 in one day. So for sure it was moving like that. But who bought it at 300? Well, the next day it went to 410 or 480 or something. And who bought it at 480? Because the next day it went back to 250, and the next day it went back to 170. So you can only make money on a short squeeze if there's a new buyer coming in. And the reason this lasted for a week or two and not a minute or two is because if the shorts thought it was worth 5 when it was trading at 20, how do you think they felt when it was at 100? They were like, oh my God, I got to short this thing. And at 200, oh my God, it's still worth 5. So the reason the stock has been hanging in there in the 40s since is that the Wall Street bets guys are still buying it just in case they can force a short squeeze. In fairness, the shorts are still thinking about it's really only worth 5. And again, I have a $16 price target, just to be fair. So I don't think it's worth 5, and I don't think it's going to 0, but I don't think it's worth much more than 16. If the company, which has a new management and a new activist investor, a guy named Ryan Cohen, who was the founder of Chewy, if they show me a strategy that says, oh my God, they're going to make 50% more profit than I expect them to, then instead of being worth 16, it's worth 24. If it says they're going to double the profit I expect, it's worth 32. Fine. I'm willing to accept my $16 target might be too low, and I'll find out when I hear the strategy, but it's not worth 400. I mean, there's no way Ryan Cohen's going to come in and tell me our profits are going up 25 times over what Pachter thinks, because I'm not that bad. I'm bad, but I'm not that bad. So my take on it is, it was one of those perfect storms. And the interesting thing is that there were plenty of other stocks that this happened with. Koss Headphones, which is a crappy little company, stock went up about 1,000%. AMC Theaters went from 2 to 5 on people getting over the fear of bankruptcy, and then from 5 they actually sold 60 million shares of stock at 5, and the next day it hit 1990. So if you're the company, why would you sell stock at 5 if you think it's worth 20? You would wait one day, and they didn't. So had they done that the next day, they would have made $900 million more, right? So obviously the company didn't think their stock was worth more than 5, or they wouldn't be selling stock. And it's back down now in that 5-6 range, and GameStop's coming back down slowly. But the truth is that the perfect storm was that GameStop's fiscal year ended January 31st. This whole short squeeze started around mid-January, and companies are prohibited from doing anything with their stock between 2 weeks before the end of their quarter and the time they report earnings. And so in order to accelerate that, sometimes they do something called pre-announce, and they let their earnings out early so they can do stock transactions. Another one that was in the short squeeze was Fubo. They pre-announced and they did a stock transaction. So you're allowed to do that. GameStop didn't. They could have, but they didn't. And I actually thought around February 1st, after their quarter ended on January 31st, they would pre-announce and they would do a stock issue. Reuters reported the management was advised by their outside counsel that it would be unfair, unethical, immoral to issue stock at 400 if the management team doesn't actually believe it's worth that. So I think that investors got a state, a tacit acknowledgement from the company that 400 was probably not what the company's worth. Again, maybe Ryan Cohen's got a great idea and the stock is worth 40 or 50. That'd be great. And when I see it, I will look at my price target and determine if I've evaluated the company correctly. But they are good things. So is GameStop better off or worse off afterwards? Remember, this is just people selling shares in GameStop. GameStop didn't get any of this money, so they're definitely not better off, and they're definitely not worse off. They didn't get anything. It would have been great for the company to have sold some stock at 400. I mean, they literally could have sold 1 million shares and gone from 65 million to 66 million shares and paid off all their debt. That would have been a smart thing to do. But according to Reuters, their management got a signal from their lawyers that would be an unethical thing to do. And again, the management team knows what the company plans are. They know what Ryan Cohen's strategy is, and I think, in fairness to them, they're not ready to go out with it until they've hammered it out and they've got they're able to articulate it clearly. But I think it will continue to happen as a good or bad thing. I think if you have time, go back and read the original post on Wall Street Bets, and it's around August. Pretty easy to find. Just go to Reddit, go to the Wall Street Bets subthread and subreddit, and you'll find it. It's really smart. I have to say, read it and you'll see the guy actually knew it would happen. It's a really good thing if shorts overplay their hands. That creates what's called an inefficiency in the market. There weren't very many shares available, and the Robinhood Redditors, the Robinhood Raiders, decided that they were going to squeeze the shorts and force them to lose money. And it's good. The shorts think the stock's going to go down. They need to be kept honest. And if the stock goes up, they need to cover. And I think the good thing is you probably won't get short positions that are more than 100% of the shares outstanding again. I think the shorts will be a lot more prudent, and they'll look at a stock and say, yeah, I think it's going to zero, but the short position is already 75%, and the squeeze would be unbearable. But I think anytime anybody identifies a market inefficiency and exploits it, that's a good thing. I am glad that a lot of people made money, including some of my friends. I am sad that a lot of people lost money. As GameStop went from 400 down to 40, somebody lost $360. And, I have some buddies who got in this late in the hundreds and they lost money net. I have one buddy who was up 400,000 for a short period of time and ended up with 200,000. And he's super smart. But the reason that he has 200,000 is on the way up, he asked me what I thought. And I said, do me a favor. Every time you close out a position to have a profit, take half of the profit and put it aside. So he actually had 400,000 profit. He put 200,000 aside. He bet the other 200,000 and got wiped out on the second half. So, that's how I would advise all of you to invest. Always put aside half your profits. It's the way you play blackjack. Always take back a little bit of your winnings. That's how you make money. You don't just keep betting it all and betting it all. So that's my answer. I hope it answered your question. Yes, you'll see it again. Probably not with GameStop, but who knows? I don't think the company's going away. I actually like them, and I think that people misunderstand. I think shorts think all games are going to be downloaded digitally, and Sony and Microsoft decided that for us by putting optical disc drives in the Xbox Series X and in the PS5. And so we're able to buy physical discs. If you're able to, they will continue to manufacture them. If they manufacture them, somebody will buy them so they can trade them in, and GameStop will allow that. So they're going to be around for at least 7 or 8 more years, and we'll see how they reinvent themselves, selling pet food and toys and leashes and poop bags. So more power to them. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor. If you are watching real time because you're a Patreon patron, thank you so much. If you have linked your Twitch Prime account to your Amazon Prime account and we're getting paid from Amazon, free to you, thank you so much. If you are subscribing through YouTube, thank you so much. If you're a freeloader watching this a week late, please understand that the only reason Shane does this is because I don't get paid and I want people to have access to this. But at a minimum, you must follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter, follow Shane at Dinfire, follow SIFTD at SIFTD Games. That's it. Pachter out.